Welcome back to 31 Days of Horror. Today is day 9, and today we checked out Saint Maud. And when I say we, I mean me and at least one of the dogs. I have heard about this movie. I have heard, I really haven't heard reviews per se. Um, I have heard some positive things. I've encountered people that I know who really enjoyed this movie. Um, I will say off the bat, I did not enjoy this movie. It is an outing from A24, and I know I've talked about that previously because, especially on day one of 31 Days of Horror, I watched Talk to Me, which is another A24 outing. Um, and I talked a little bit about how they are one of the new, like, bigger names in horror now. And I'm always interested to see what they've come out with. I'm always interested to see what stories they're telling. And this just happened to be a miss for me. And there's a few reasons for that. And I don't necessarily think it's the film's fault itself. Um, I don't I don't want to say that the movie's bad because I certainly don't think that. I think it was a very limited cast, kind of closed um, storyline. You know, there were very few actual characters, um, and it was a very tight focus on the main character who we are introduced to as Maud. Um, and Here's a few reasons why the movie failed for me. Um, it's incredibly slow. And when I say that it's slow, there is just a lot of time in the movie where they are um, kind of developing the story, letting the story unfold, um, but there's nothing actually happening. There isn't really anything that's happening that's, for me, developing suspense or creating tension or anxiety or anything that would really add to the story. It's just nothing's happening. Um, there are a lot of elements introduced in the story, especially at the beginning, that have absolutely no payoff. Um, I feel like I left the movie with more questions than I had answers, or that I had, closure to. And the thing is, I don't expect stories to be wrapped up in a nice, neat little package. I don't expect them to have a happy ending. I don't expect all of my questions to be answered, especially when we're talking about the horror genre, because the horror genre notoriously has plot threads that don't go anywhere. A lot of times they're red herrings. Other times sometimes it seems like they're forgotten plot threads. Other times they just didn't turn out being relevant to the story. But I can forgive all of that if it's a good movie with a compelling story with interesting characters, and in the end they give you something. But for me, this entire movie was very slow moving, left a lot to be desired character wise, um, left a lot to be desired just explanation of anything wise. Um, and it had an ambiguous ending. And when you're going to have a film, like I said, my opinion, if you're going to have a film that's going to have an ambiguous ending, you have to give us more of a story, because you have to give us a reason why we would believe an ending one way or the other. We have to have a reason why the ending works being ambiguous. And for me, this movie really didn't develop any reason why the ending being ambiguous would be compelling or would work. And essentially, the story follows a young woman that had a past trauma. The past trauma became her, quote, come to Jesus moment, and she found God, and she is trying to uh, find purpose in her life through her faith. And she's also compelled to help people. So we see her as a personal nurse. And we get just through the story developing that the traumatic event that she had happened was involved with her working in a hospital, um, and being a nurse in a hospital. And we're introduced to like one of her friends from back then, or a woman that she worked with. We're introduced to the woman that she is currently doing palliative care for. If you're not familiar, palliative care is end of life care, usually for hospice patients. And there are wonderful, beautiful souls of people who specialize in just doing palliative care for people. Um, and so that's something that was actually an aspect of this movie that could hit close to home for me, because I have now had more than one person very close to me in my life who's had to go through palliative care and has since passed away. So that was something I was familiar with. That was something that really could have, affected me psychologically or emotionally through this movie. Also, the kind of come to Jesus experience, anything having to do with religion is also something that has a tendency to, draw me in or be an interesting topic, because I spent my youth raised in the Roman Catholic Church and going to a Roman Catholic school. Um, so it's concepts and things and imagery and, um, teachings and things that I am very familiar with. So a lot of times that adds to the scare, or that adds to my understanding of experiences and things. And even though those were the main aspects of this movie, they really had no impact on the story. And you would think, because this is about a woman's faith and about her, believing that she has been chosen by God in those respects, we don't really get any indication of that ever being anything more than what she says, or that her understanding of what she's going through may not just be a mental thing that she's going through. And I think they wanted it to be ambiguous. I think they wanted us to think like, oh, is this girl actually chosen by God? And, you know, is it affecting her life maybe negatively, but she's going to, be saved in the end? Those are things, those are, I think, the topics that they wanted us to consider with this film, but I don't think they gave us enough to work with. Um, I think the acting was all really well done, but I also don't think they even made the main character really all that likable. So I don't necessarily feel like, at least for me, I wasn't really rooting for her or against her in the movie. I more just wanted answers to the plot threads they kept giving us. I wanted to know, okay, so she had this trauma that happened, and people that she from in her past life like have referenced this as a reason why she might not want to be a nurse anymore. Okay, what happened? Um, what was her come to Jesus moment? Did this thing happen and then, she had a moment, or she, walked into a church as part of her therapy, or as a part of, her post trauma, and, she read this text, or she felt something. There was just no, other than this character saying, like, God chose me, I'm going to do this. There wasn't anything to back it up or to give us an indication, like, is this supposed to feel supernatural? Are we supposed to be questioning her sanity? Um, and unfortunately, I think we do end up questioning her sanity, but not for any real relevant reasons. I think we end up questioning her sanity because we don't have any information. We don't have any information about this girl, about what her past really entailed. We just have some exposition from a friend, but we also get an indication that they're not actually even really friends. So then you're not really sure, why is she even involved. It's very confusing. I think how the characters are supposed to relate to each other and what the payoff in the end was supposed to be. um, I think the entire movie could have been done exactly the same as it was, and it could have been very uh, prominent. I think it could have been very, scary. I think it could have been moving. I think it could have been thrilling, or anxiety inducing, or I think it could have created a lot more discussions if they had given us anything concrete. Um, because at the end of the day, movies are all make believe. Even if they're based on a true story, even if they're telling us a story that we know is true, it's still make believe because it's a movie. It's actors creating this story. So, in order for us to have any feelings about a film, we have to have a reason to care about it. We have to have a reason to feel anything for it. And this movie didn't give me a reason to feel anything. It was just, oh, she's walking, something's happening. Oh, okay. Uh, oh, now she's a little bit rude to this person. Oh, okay. And now she's making a weird face. Like, that's kind of the running commentary. This is all I can give you on the movie. Also, I have to say, it falls victim to something that a lot of films recently, and TV shows especially, it's a big complaint from people, falls victim to it's too damn dark. There are entire scenes where I have really no idea what I was supposed to be looking at. And that being said, I have all of the settings on all of the TVs that I use to watch anything, and even on my computer screens, I have all the settings to for calibrated dark, because that's the direction that a lot of movies and TV shows and things went. Literally after the Battle of Winterfell of season 8 of Game of Thrones, all of my televisions have different settings that I readily click through based on how dark or bright or saturated or desaturated whatever I'm watching is, because sometimes it's just difficult to see what's going on. And I have to say that even despite that, this movie, it was incredibly difficult for a lot of times to even see what I was supposed to be looking at. What was I supposed to be reacting to? What was I supposed to be feeling anything about? And I think that didn't add to it. So, exposition wise and things happening in the story did not give us any indication of really what was going on. And then it was really damn hard to see anything. And that didn't help. I can't really comment much on dialogue itself because the dialogue wasn't really that important. Um, or at least they didn't make it out to be. Some of it was very difficult to hear, or it was difficult to discern who was talking and who wasn't, because a lot of the camera angles weren't even on the person. Um, Sometimes, and I get that's supposed to kind of, confusion also is sometimes supposed to like make you feel something, but there's a difference between making a story kind of confusing and making the audience feel like the chaotic confusion that the characters might be feeling, and then there's a difference between just making a confusing, not very good movie. And unfortunately, I think Saint Maud has fallen into the second category. That being said, like I said, I know people who enjoyed the movie. Um, I know people who swear by it, but then again, there's plenty of movies that other people adore that I don't particularly enjoy. And I think horror is very difficult and polarizing in that sense, because something that scares one person could be absolutely meaningless to somebody else, vice versa. Um, there are people who think clowns are horrific, and there are other people who think clowns are hysterical. There's some people who are afraid of ghosts, and other people who don't think they're real. Um, there are people who are faithful, who are religious, who have a lot of faith, who have a lot of opinions regarding um, life practices and um, how they approach life and situations, and if they believe that they have a calling from a higher power and things like that. Those are all very real things. And then there are people who think that all of that's a bunch of rubbish, and this movie, I think, had the opportunity to explore a lot of that, and it just chose not to. um, and I think that was to its detriment. I really think if you're going to decide to make some sort of like religious sense of a movie, and you're going to call it something like Saint Maud, then you need to embrace that aspect of it. Um, I think it was very vague, of even when she talks about, feeling God and all of that. What God is she even talking about? Is she talking about a Judeo-Christian God? Is she talking about the God from other texts? And really, the only indication is she talks about William Wordsworth and how he didn't necessarily believe in organized religion, but he believed in a very strong faith. And that's all well and good. But when you're talking about a character who then has moral um, views on the world and has a concept of saving a soul, then you have to introduce kind of what faith is she following, because there are plenty of faiths that don't even believe in those concepts. So, like I said, lost it for me. And in no sense of the word did I find this movie to even be scary or startling or really thought provoking. And unfortunately, this is going to become one of those movies that when it's brought up, I probably make a face. It's just like, oh, have you seen Saint Maud? Yeah. That's probably going to be, I don't like it. And I don't know. I would love to hear, especially when I don't like something, I would love to hear if you did, and I would love to hear why. I don't necessarily have an opinion on um, whether or not people like things that I don't, but I do love to hear if they have a differing opinion than me, because sometimes it makes me go back and watch something and have a completely different take on it. If sometimes I watch movies from a perspective other people didn't really consider, and when we chat about it, sometimes they are like, oh, I didn't think about that. I guess if you watch it like that, it makes, this makes more sense. Or, oh, that would be a cool way to think about it when watching it. I'll go back and watch that. And I do the same thing. Um, because I think the impact of media on us has a lot to do with our own personal life experience. And I think maybe my personal life experience put forth expectations of this film that it was not able to meet. But somebody else who doesn't have those same experiences and who didn't go into it with, um, certain opinions and certain desires from the movie may have had a very starkly different take. And I would love to hear that if you have something to say. So uh, feel free to comment down below. That sums up day 9 of our 31 days of horror. I'm looking forward to the rest of the month, and I will see you tomorrow. So have a great day.